Welcome to another edition of the 49er GoldCast.
San Francisco, are you ready? Boom! Welcome to another edition of the 49er GoldCast. We are the voice of the faithful. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the first, baby.
and our esteemed co-hosts,
Lewie Bartone.
Oh, special guest.
What up?
straight from the GoldCast videos. Welcome on. Now, I don't think anyone realizes this is officially your first time on the GoldCast, but it's not really your first time on the GoldCast.
It's like a kind of my first time on the GoldCast. Yeah, it's like 1.2 or something.
Yes, yeah. We actually recorded an episode with Louis in July of this year that, for one reason or another, something was wrong with the recording, and we didn't have it. And so we ended up not having his debut there. So your debut is officially on this GoldCast. Well, welcome to the GoldCast, buddy.
Love it. Thank you guys. It's happy to be here, man.
Awesome. So we're going to get into the news today. Raymond, why don't you talk about everything that has happened since Game 4 of the final preseason game? I mean, a lot has gone down.
The biggest headline coming out of San Francisco was, of course, the very unfortunate news that former fullback, now tight end, Bruce Miller was arrested for assault, aggravated assault, assault on an elderly, battery, as well as assault with a deadly weapon, not a firearm. His bond today was $178,000, and of course, within an hour of that news coming out of San Francisco, Trent Baalke went ahead and released him from the team, which of course caused a little bit of a ripple effect in terms of roster movements. So one of those big. So why don't we start there then, before we get into some of the roster movements, because that was a big hit.
It's really unfortunate, and this is always, this generally, once we're this far into like the beginning of the season, I mean, this is something I would expect, unfortunately, in like June or May, not after preseason.
Yeah, it was actually last June or last July, one of the two, where he was arrested for domestic violence, but then everything got dropped or dismissed. His wife came out and said no, he wasn't physical or anything. So he kind of dodged a bullet there. That was his kind of get out of jail free card, but not this time around.
Yeah, definitely a bummer. Like really, really kind of disappointed that it's come down. So I thought Bruce Miller was a fairly decent player that had just never quite got his due. And looking at the way we were playing, looking at all those tight end passes that was happening during preseason. I mean, it looks like it's a hole that we now have.
Well, potentially. I mean, there's still Blake Bell, there's still Selleck, there's still McDonald, so you still got some good guys over there. You also have Jerron Ham, who might come up at any point in time, although you never know what might happen, because Jerron Ham did lead the team in, I think, receptions during the preseason. So, and that's a guy who ended up getting retained on the practice squad, so he did clear waivers. Thank God for that. There was quite a few guys on the waiver wire that everyone was kind of biting their nails about, but most of them made it back onto the practice squad, so that was good news. Speaking of the roster itself, Louis, did you have any thoughts on Bruce Miller?
That just sucks. That just definitely just sucks. And you hate seeing that, even though I'm the resident Rams fan, and I want you guys to be worse than us. I don't want to see you guys lose players to reasons like that. Yeah, that sucks. I always kind of liked him, so that blows it. That's the reason why he's out.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I guess guy can't hold his liquor. He tried to get a hotel room at like 3 a.m, so we all know what he was doing at that hour, and there was no vacancy. So then he kind of, in his drunken stupor, knocked on one of the doors of the hotel guests, and knocked on one door, and it was like a 7-year-old man and a 66-year-old woman. And then, this is according to the reports out of San Francisco, and then the door adjacent to that room was the son of the elderly man. He came out, was the same age as Bruce Miller, to age 29, came out and said, hey, you have the wrong room. He got aggressive, he charged him, they tried to, pull him back, but, Bruce Miller is a huge, huge guy. So their efforts were thwarted. Both the 29-year-old son and the elderly man both went to the hospital. The elderly man had broken bones. They didn't say which bones were broken. But, when you have a fullback who's as good as Bruce Miller, in a drunken, aggressive mood, I mean, that's scary. So it's just unfortunate that he was so irresponsible with himself. And there was a picture on Instagram he sent out earlier that day with a couple of buddies saying Sundays for the boys or something like that. I don't know, but it's just like, gosh, like such an innocent picture. Who would have thought that, that night would be the end of potentially his career? I think he'll get another shot, but first the NFL is going to come down on him with his suspension, which they didn't do last year. So I expect a full-on penalty here. Anywhere between 6 to 8 games is my guess.
I could see that.
All right, so moving on. So after that happened, that caused a few ripple effects. The Niners tried to trade L.J. McCray to the Seattle Seahawks rather than just let him get claimed off of waivers. He didn't pass the physical, so he ended up just getting waived. So the Niners were not able to get I think it was a 7th-round draft pick from Seattle, so he's on waivers. He'll likely get picked up by Seattle for free. So that's kind of a bum deal there. But we did re-sign DeJuan Harris, who showed lots of flashes of potential. I think the only thing that really bothered me was his ball handling techniques, which led to a couple of fumbles during the preseason. Something that I'm not surprised to see out of Mike Davis, who also had a couple fumbles in the preseason, but I expect a little bit more tighter technique for someone like DeJuan Harris, who's been in the league for more than a couple years. Actually used to play for Green Bay as well, especially under the tutelage of Tom Rathman, who emphasizes ball protection very much so. So, I mean, we're talking about one of the best running back coaches in the NFL. So, nice to see him back in the mix. Hopefully he'll add another dimension to an already deep running back group. Will Redmond, the 3rd-round pick, who was coming off an ACL injury, was placed on IR. He had flashes during the preseason, looked really good in the limited play he had, but also looked like he was missing a step or two, wasn't quite fully healed. So this makes sense. I mean, he might be able to come off IR, but if he does, he'll be the only player able to do that. Each NFL team's only allowed one IR promotion per year.
Right.
And then the Niners also claimed another Oregon defensive lineman, Taylor Hart from Philadelphia. So that was the big one. They waived L.J. McCray, they picked up Taylor Hart, they signed DeJuan Harris, and they placed Will Redmond on IR. Those are kind of the big moves that followed the Bruce
and
Miller
released
thing.
Bruce Miller.
And released Bruce Miller.
And Bruce Ellington drops down for the season too. He's out for the season though.
That's rough.
Huge.
He fell, and then Eric Rodgers fell earlier before that during training camp. So those were the two wide receivers that really thought were going to be kind of complementary pieces to Torrey Smith and Quentin Patton, but unfortunately it didn't happen that way, which is why we picked up Curley. We picked up Rod Streeter as well. That was a good pickup. He was in the Raiders. He had over 800 yards receiving in 2013 in Oakland, so hopefully he can recapture some of that under Chip Kelly's offense, which is a nice balance between run and pass. So we'll see how that develops. I had
no idea they picked up Rod Streeter. That's awesome. I've been a huge advocate fantasy-wise for Rod Streeter. I've always rooted for him. I have like a running gag with a buddy of mine that like every year I'm going to put a waiver claim on him. I never will. I never would because he ended up not fulfilling really well. But hopefully he can put it together in San Francisco. That'd be awesome. I root for him all the time.
Oh, that's great. Good to hear.
Yeah,
he did put up some pretty. He had a breakout year that year.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. We'll see if he's able to recapture some of that.
Yeah, that is a lot of changes. I mean, Blaine Gabbert is officially announced as starting quarterback for Week 1.
Yes, which I love, and I love it because I called it. I called it last preseason or last this offseason when they hired Chip Kelly. When they hired Chip Kelly, I said I think Blaine Gabbert's the better quarterback for that system. Even though everyone thought it would be Cap, I think Gabbert's the better quarterback for it.
It's easy to fall in love with Cap in that situation because his upside's so much greater than Gabbert, and even Christian Ponder and Jeff Driscoll, who, by the way, also got picked up on waivers by the Bengals. So that was our 6th-round draft pick this year. We picked up him, Aaron Burbridge, and Kelvin Taylor. We had 3 offensive players in the 6th round of this year's draft, and Driscoll did not make the team. He was cut, and then he was picked up by the Bengals real quick as soon as he hit the waiver wire.
Good for him.
So good for him. He'll have another shot over there. So well, good luck to him.
Yeah.
It's just a little disappointing to see such a recent draft pick already gone low.
Well, and a quarterback too, because that's such a sensitive subject with our team right now.
Exactly, and we just got that guy.
Yeah,
who is like a more raw version of like Gabbard and Cap. He's kind of a hybrid.
He looked like in preseason he showed off some running ability for sure, man.
He did. We're about to begin our our regular season preview, our regular season extravaganza. We pretty much, as a group here at the GoldCast, pretty much feel that the Seahawks and the Cardinals are going to be taking first and second. In which order, not really sure yet.
My money is on Arizona, Seattle, in that order.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I definitely think so. I think so as well. Raymond, what do you think? Who do you think?
I'd probably give a slight edge to Arizona because they're a bit more complete at this stage. Although Seattle, you never know with Seattle. They have this knack, even though they're kind of on the downturn of their peak, so to speak. But they still have enough juice in the tank to, regardless of what the record is, whether it's 10-6 or 11-5 or something like that. They still have enough in the tank to overcome anyone, especially if they get into the playoffs, because they've been there. They have that juice, kind of like the Giants. How with if the San Francisco Giants, the baseball franchise, gets into the playoffs, regardless of how they, sludge through the regular season, then they have this ability to kind of just turn it on. And so if Seattle gets there, whether it's a wild card or as a division winner, then watch out, because they're pretty formidable once they're inside the playoffs.
People kind of forget too that last year they kind of people I talk to, they write off that divisional game between Seattle and Carolina because they were down at halftime 31-0. They came back to make it, I believe, either 31-24 or I think it was 31-24, 31-27. Like they came close to overcoming the deficit and beating Carolina in Carolina. I mean, they were not far off. I definitely think my money is again on a possible NFC West. NFC West, NFC Championship. Yes, exactly. I think Arizona, Seattle is going to be them, and my money's on Arizona all year this year. I think they're just such a complete team, like you said. And if you guys have watched All or Nothing, or if anyone out there can watch it, it's on Amazon. It's when they followed the Arizona Cardinals through their whole 2015 season.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I watched it. I highly, highly recommend it. That's the closest I ever came to binge watching something. It was, I think I finished it in a week, which if anyone knows me, that's insanely fast. It was incredible. I mean, I wanted to be a Cardinals fan. Like that was how good it was.
Wow.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. It just follows them through training camp, or does it follow them through the whole year?
Whole season. It's the first time it's ever happened in the NFL, because there's a Hard Knocks, which is just through training camp, but no camera crew has ever followed a team for the entirety of a season. They followed them from the start of the regular season, so week 1, all the way through until they lost in Carolina.
Wow.
Yeah, and it just makes you root for all the players. They seem really cool. It makes you root for all of them. And they
right, all that behind the scenes stuff.
Exactly. You get to see them as people, and and more than just kind of a player on a field. On top of that, back to the original point though, they're such a good team, and Bruce Arians is such a good head coach. When you watch that and you realize it, you're like, oh, this is why they're 13-3 team.
Well, he's a great coach, and that is a damn good team right now.
He's a good coach. I'd say the one, question mark is Carson Palmer, because he has yet to kind of overcome the playoff hump, and that's really the last thing remaining within his his NFL bucket list, so to speak.
Well, he's the player I don't trust. He's the player I don't trust. Like, I feel like if they're going to lose, it's going to be on his watch.
Which is scary because he's a quarterback. That's kind of the scary point.
Right. It'd be different if it was like, man, that cornerback, he sure is a liability, but you're not too worried about it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And I think my biggest argument for it, not to make this a Cardinals podcast, but my biggest argument for them this year, I think, is that if Tyrann Mathieu was in the NFC Championship, I'm not saying they would have magically beaten Carolina, because they really got blown out. But I think it would have been a much closer game. He's I compare him to like the Ray Lewis lifeblood of a team. They love him in that defense. He's kind of just the lifeblood of that defense, and he keeps them going. Not to mention he's a major playmaker. I think if he was in that game, it would have been a much different game.
All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the battle we care about. Because first and second, that's pretty much been decided. Okay.
Yeah.
But the battle we care about is the battle for third and fourth. Los Angeles Rams and the beautiful, amazing, unstoppable San Francisco 49ers. So I asked you this off air, but I want to ask you on air. Jeff Fisher get fired this year?
Correct. I'm a firm believer in that he's going to get fired this season. I think it's time. He's been with the club for this is his fourth year, I believe. And I said this stat when we recorded it last, but he is really bad. He's a really bad head coach that people don't realize he is. Like I believe his overall record, which now it should be 18 of 22, but they said 18 of his 22 seasons of coaching have been losing records. Like that is terrible.
That is terrible.
But no one knows that. Like if no one thinks about that,
everyone just thinks of the Panthers year.
Oh, the Titans year.
The Titans. Excuse me.
Exactly. Yeah, everyone thinks of the Super Bowl. Everyone thinks of like when they went 13-3 and won the division and like they lost in playoffs. But they think of those seasons. They don't think of like majority of his career. He's been just so mediocre. So yeah,
I think a big part of that is though. I think the reason that happens is because he's really good at spoiling the big guns in our division, and our division happens for the last 5 years has often carried one of the top two best teams in the entire league. Whether
Correct.
It's the Niners or the Seahawks or the Cardinals, one of those three have taken turns as arguably the best team in the league, and he wins these games that he's not supposed to win in such dramatic fashion that I think he's the way he wins and who he wins against. Often it's such high-profile wins that no one's paying attention to, like the string of 4 losses in between them.
Right. But he beat San Francisco, but he beat Seattle, but he beat the Cardinals. If he can beat those teams, he theoretically should be able to beat the rest of the league.
Well, it's obvious that his understanding of the NFC West is very deep, and
super deep.
He really understands how to. I mean, he even gave Harbaugh a lot of trouble. So, Raymond, why don't you break down the regular season schedule of the 49ers, and we'll go week by week and do our final picks before the season starts.
So, once again, San Francisco is put on the national spotlight of Monday Night Football, which is where we love to be.
Beautiful stadium, by the way. I went there last year at the end of the season for the Week 17 game. It was awesome. So, Rams go to Santa Clara. And my money is obviously on Los Angeles. I'm going to take them in this game for sure.
Raymond, what do you think?
Well, originally, when we first did this cast, we all thought that, because the Rams traded, 6 picks to move up into the number 1 spot to take Jared Goff. So we all thought, okay, they're going to take Jared Goff. There's a high probability that he's probably going to be the starter. That has not been the case. He actually has been bumped down to number 3 quarterback, and anything can change over the course of the season, especially if injuries devastate the Rams' starting lineup. But with that said, I'm still not convinced that their starting quarterback. I also think that they lost a lot of veteran players that made up the bulk of that defense that's been so good against the NFC West the last 3-4 years, that I don't see them kind of picking up where they left off last year. I actually see them taking a step back, especially with all the young guys on their team, and they weren't able to add the same amount of depth that they would have had they had those 6 picks back. So I'm going to take the Niners in this one, Chip Kelly being the X factor. Heading over into week 2, that is over in Carolina, immediately on the road. I think this is going to be pretty rough, considering that Carolina's kind of they're in headhunter mode right now, trying to get some redemption. I don't know how well they're going to pursue that challenge, but I do think they are better than San Francisco at this point.
Yeah, East Coast game again at 10 a.m., man. Carolina all day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Niners were a really bad road team last year. I suspect that trend to change under Chip Kelly because a head coach makes a huge difference, but I do not think it's enough to overcome Carolina. Then we travel back to the West Coast in Week 3 for a 1 o'clock game in Seattle. Not sure we're ready to take over this hump, too, despite the fact that we have a new coach. The Harbaugh-Pete Carroll rivalry is gone. Most of those players, with the exception of Kaepernick and Navarro Bowman, are gone. So this is pretty much a brand new club, and Phil Dawson, if you want to count him too. But I still think that Seattle is still Seattle, and in that regard, I believe we're going to start season 1 and 2.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think 1 and 2 is the right way to do it. Yeah, I think in Seattle they're gonna be hot.
Yeah. I don't think we beat Seattle in Seattle.
Week 4. Now, when we first did this, I thought that we were good enough to take the Cowboys. Some people thought differently. I believe you guys thought differently. I still feel the same way, especially now that Romo has a broken vertebrae and he's out for at least 6 to 10 weeks. So he's going to miss majority of the season, if not at least half. So I don't expect Dak Prescott to do much better. Ezekiel Elliott is supposed to be really good, and he's going to be behind a good line, which is the benefit that he has coming into this game. But I don't think that you can win with running just alone. You're going to have to pass eventually, and that's where Dak Prescott's going to get exposed with our pass rush. So I'm going to say Niners start 2-2.
Yeah, this one's a wash for me. It's really hard. I think I got it. I was thinking San Francisco because of Romo, but I'm just thinking about with Dak Prescott, who can run, and I think Zeke in the one preseason drive he got. It's preseason, but it was in Seattle. Looked like everything he's touted to be. I think that between him and Dak Prescott, I think there will be some read option stuff. I think the Cowboys are going to eke out a victory here. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be really I think it is. It might be a hot take because Romo's out, but I think it's going to be. I think even with Chip Kelly, that's going to be a ground attack game. I think it's going to be Carlos Hyde and Ezekiel Elliott just pounding the rock the whole game, and I think the Cowboys are going to come up just barely. But I think the Cowboys win it.
Ooh.
Hot take.
Ooh, that one's hot. That one's sizzling a little bit, brother. What do you say?
Yeah, I was sizzling. Exactly. I say 49ers. Romo's out. The Cowboys. We'll see. We'll see what Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott can do. They've got a fantastic offensive line over there, and I have no doubt that they're going to figure it out, but I think week 4 they're still finding their footing. Prescott's still new, and I think we take that game.
After that,
hold on, real quick, Louis. Do you think Romo's career is over?
Oh man, dude, I'm always rooting for Romo because I think he's a really tough guy, and like his numbers, man, he's actually a pretty solid quarterback. People give him a lot of crap, but he's actually really solid. I root for him all the time, but I think it should be. He's had so many injuries.
Week 5. So this is a tough one to call here. I could easily see the Niners falling 2-3, but I could also see them catching the Cardinals off guard at home. Because the Niners played very well at home last year, defensively, not necessarily offensively. We all know that they have a new offensive scheme that is going to be high octane, very similar to the Cardinals in that regard, as far as speed and potency and efficiency goes. And also the mix up with the running game. These are similar brands of offense, although coached in very different. The methodology is very different. So I'm going to take a wild stab here and say that the Niners pull off the home victory of the Cardinals. I think it'll be a different story in Arizona, but I think they rise to 3-2 at this point.
Ooh.
This is a tough one. Now remember, I'm biased, so I'm going to give the edge to my team every time. Oh, well, not every time, but where I see.
You know what though? No. You know what? No, that's I have zero bias towards San Francisco, but I gotta say, after hearing you talk and then looking at it, I'm gonna pick San Francisco on this one too. I think for me they go to 2-3 right now because I had them at 1-3, so I think they go 2-3 here. But this is like you just said, they're gonna catch them off guard. This is a short week. This is a Thursday night game. I think Arizona last year around this time, this is when Arizona had their first 1 or 2 stumbles. They came out really hot, and then they had a kind of stumble or two right here around week 4, week 5. I think, again, that happens. I think that they just come out on a short week to San Francisco, and San Francisco somehow just finds a way to get an edge. I think Torrey Smith is going to beat people on the edge quickly, and for some reason I just had that feeling, and I think that Torrey Smith's going to do it, and I think that they're going to pull through in this one. I think it's going to be a close game, like 19-16 San Francisco wins or something like that.
Yeah, I can see it being a close game. It's going to come down to the running game because I think the passing attacks are going to get sniffed out. There's going to be a lot of pass rushing on both sides of the football.
Oh, for sure.
The corners are on Arizona side is you're going to have to watch for Peterson and Matthew for sure, because they're going to try to take out the outside. But that's also going to say, well, what happens to the inside? That means the tight end's got to have a big game in that game, and we have more tight end depth in that regard, which I think might be the X factor on offense if Carlos Hyde isn't able to pump out some yardage.
And I love Vance McDonald. I think he can be an X factor in that game for sure.
He can if he reaches his potential. Gosh, if he can.
Yeah.
And and this is all assuming that Carson Palmer's healthy by week 5.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
Of course. Carson Palmer's out, then for sure San Francisco wins it.
You guys almost had me convinced, both of you, after hearing all of this, that the Cardinals are going to lose. But I'm going to take the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals
All right. Wow.
All right.
Yeah, I don't want it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so now we have the Bills traveling to the East Coast. This is the East Coast 10 a.m. game. Now, if this was last year's Jim Tom Sula team traveling east, I would say, you know what? The Niners don't pack their defense. They're just not equipped to do it anymore. They don't have that Harbaugh instinct where they would just pack. The Vic Fangio defense would come with them and play just as good at home as they do on the road, or just as good on the road as they do at home. But in this case, we have a completely different defensive coordinator who is firm, who has had success everywhere he has been, everywhere he has coached. And the same thing can be said with Chip Kelly. So with that, whenever you have a successful coach come into a franchise, the success that coach has experienced and that coach preaches usually translates really well with players. So in this case, I don't see them having the same jitters that they did on the road last year. I don't see them having that this year. And again, this is Rex Ryan. I do not trust Rex Ryan. I trust him defensively. I do not trust him offensively. We have the edge in this case because our offense is better than their offense, and that means that our defense is going to have an easier time shutting them down. So I'm going to take San Francisco on the road here, and that means we step up to 4-2 at this point.
I can totally see where you're coming from. I have a hard time, and maybe this is because I have some stock in the Bills' offense fantasy-wise. I don't think the Niners' offense is that much better than Buffalo's. I think they're pretty evenly matched how I look at it, just because I think Tyrod Taylor, they just re-signed him to a decently big contract. I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be solid. I liked him last year if he can stay healthy. It seemed like they were saying he kind of learned how to get out of the way of being hit, not just when he's on the run. I think LaShawn McCoy is going to be really good this year. I think Sammy Watkins is still a deep threat that I don't know if the Niners secondary has what it takes to take him out. And I will say fully, I have not paid too much attention to the Niners secondary other than a couple preseason games. But I think Buffalo, I got to go with Rudy on this one, just a West Coast team going to East Coast again at 10 a.m. I think I'm going to take Buffalo on this one.
I actually am going the opposite on this one. I think I take the 49ers. I just don't think I think Rex Ryan's a hack.
Yeah.
I really do. I've always thought he was a hack.
He's past his prime.
He's
I can see that for sure.
Extremely overrated. I always thought he was extremely overrated. Even his defenses. I don't know. They're good. It's hard for me to go, well, he's so good at this one thing. Well, then why do you lose all the time? You lose all the time. I don't know. How good are
exactly.
Yeah, like when
offense has to score.
Like when Greg Papa praises I've heard Greg Papa praise Rex Ryan. Although he praises him, to be clear, I think he praises him more defensively, but he also says he's a good coach. I'm like, okay, well, as a fan that doesn't understand football as well as someone like Greg Papa does, what I see is a coach that doesn't win as often as you want a coach to win. So in that case, I can't take him seriously. It's kind of like Jeff Fisher, the Jeff Fishers of the world, the Rex Ryans, the middle of the road coaches. And Rex Ryan actually, I don't think he's as good a coach as Jeff Fisher is, to be perfectly honest.
No, I don't. I agree with that.
I think Jeff Fisher's a better coach.
I think so too. I would agree with
Thank
that.
you guys. I think they're both pretty similar. I'd put them right kind of next to. I think Fisher's taken the team to the Super Bowl. Rex Ryan hasn't, obviously, so I think I can give him the edge there. But I think they're pretty similar coaches for sure.
Yeah, and so on this one, I'm definitely going to go with the 49ers. I know where they're traveling east. I don't necessarily trust that, but pretty much for all the exact same reasons you said, Ray. I think the 49ers win that game.
Yeah, and actually, I think...
But that puts them at 3-4 on my schedule.
Yeah, so they're 4-2 mine. I'm going to say they keep it going here. They're at home. The defense plays terrific at home. They were a top 10 defense statistically at home. On the road, it was a different story, which is why they ended up at the bottom of the barrel. Defensively, because they were getting blown out on the road, straight up. And so in this case, I think with the newly vamped defense, the Twin Towers, the draft picks, the newly improved secondary, which, by the way, is the defensive coordinator's specialty, which is why they look much more improved this year. Yeah, so when he was the secondary coach in the Jets, they were the top secondary that year that he was their secondary coach. When he was the linebackers coach for the Buffalo Bills, they led the league in sack that season. When he was the defensive coordinator for the Browns, they were a top 10 defense. The next year they had injuries that depleted them, and they fell off the charts. And then he came to San Francisco. So outside of that one odd year in Cleveland, this guy has success everywhere he's been. So that's why I preach so highly with him, and his specialty is secondary. So
that's good.
I think Jameis Winston, this is a tough one because this is a team that's on the rise. They were 6-10 last year. They kind of surprised everybody with a 6-10 record. Jameis Winston played to his potential and has, plenty of room to grow and expand. And I do like Dirk Cutter as their offensive coordinator. And this one could go either way, but I'm gonna say Niners get on a 4-game win streak. Chip Kelly starts to get a lot of buzz in the media for turning things around in San Francisco early on, and they improve to 5-3. Or I'm sorry, 5-2.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give it to San Francisco here. I think at home they can beat out Tampa Bay. I don't think that Tampa Bay has enough to pull through there. I think I take San Francisco on that one too. No argument.
I'm going to take San Francisco on that. I think Jameis Winston, same thing. I think he has a lot of potential, but I think that we can stack that defense and give him a hard day. I don't necessarily think it's going to be an easy win, but I think the 49ers win that game.
Yeah, for sure.
So then we have the bye, and then Raymond, Week 9.
Week 9, we host the Saints, so we stay at home and we host the Saints. Now, this is a team that we've kind of had their number since 2011, even in the downturn. I think there was the only game we lost was a controversial call on Ahmad Brooks, who actually got redemption, ended up getting redemption the next time we played them. So it's kind of a very poetic justice, so to speak, for the Saints. I think again, and we barely won that game too. Thank God Ahmad Brooks sealed the deal there. He sealed the deal in the other one too, but they said it was a roughing the passer hit.
That was such.
It was, but like I said, the trend is the Niners have the Saints run. I say we again go to a 5-game win streak here, improve into 6-2, and start to get playoff buzz here. But we'll see how things turn out with the rest of the schedule.
Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna take. Man, that's a hard one, just because New Orleans on the road is so hard to
They're terrible out on the road. Well, yeah, I'd say they're 50-50 on the road. You don't know which New Orleans you're going to get.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I would like to see who New Orleans plays before that, but I think blindly I'll give that to San Francisco. I think New Orleans defense is, kind of the opposite of what the argument I've been giving for a lot of teams. I think their defense won't be able to keep up with San Francisco's defense, so they're going to hold them down. And I think Saints defense isn't going to be there this year again. So I think, I'll give it to the Niners there.
I don't believe the Saints. The Saints they're terrible on the road, and I think they come to San Francisco and they lose that game.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Here, Louis, I'll shed some light on. You were curious on who were they playing the week before.
Uh-huh.
The week before they come to San Francisco, because that's in November 6th. The week before they play the Seahawks.
Ooh.
And the week before that, it's Kansas City, and the week before that, it's Carolina, and then after San Francisco, they're playing Denver.
That's wow.
And then Carolina again. So 6 games of
go
just
on a slide.
They just have it rough right there.
Wow.
And then they play you after Carolina. They play the Rams.
Wow.
That is brutal.
It's a brutal
so
6-game stretch.
First game. Okay, yeah.
So
I think I'll take the Niners.
I think they're going to get pretty beat up in that 6-week stretch there.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
So here we go on to Week 10 here. This is another road game in Arizona, not too dissimilar time zone-wise, or game time starts for us. It's like playing at home almost. You just short travel, but it's two Cardinals. I don't think they beat Arizona at home. This is assuming that the Cardinals are in stride and doing what they do best, as they have the last couple years. So I'm going to take the Cardinals on this one. They break the 5-game win streak. San Francisco drops to 6-3.
Yeah, I take. I'm going to definitely go with Arizona on this one. I think Arizona. I think they kind of tie the series up. Here, I think Arizona wins. In Arizona, they're going to be in stride, and I think, there's not much really to say about that. I don't think San Francisco is going to be able to keep up with them on the road, which actually drops them down for me to, I believe, 3-6. I have them at 3 wins right now, so 3-6 for the Niners for me. Not going to be well liked on my first podcast for the Niners.
I also believe that the Arizona Cardinals win this game, and they sweep them on my schedule. They sweep the 49ers this year.
Nice, okay.
So Week 11, we host the New England Patriots, same time again, 1:25 Pacific time. Now, Tom Brady has already been back for 6 weeks. I think he's in stride at this point. I think the Pats are kind of on track doing what they do best. They have a really good system that allows them to maintain course regardless of who's at quarterback. Matt Castle was the last example of that, or the last best example, meaning when he took over for Brady during the ACL injury year.
Right.
I think it's a similar case in this regard. I don't necessarily think we're equipped to take care. Even though we are at home, I think we give some good punches to New England throughout the game. But in the end, especially in the second half, I think the Pats pull away, and San Francisco falls to 6-4.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I agree. I think the Niners lose this one, even though they're at home. They're going to go on, a bit of a 2-game slide there. I think that because for me, they're going to a 2-game slide. Yeah, because New England's New England, man. They're gonna go back to the playoffs again this year. They're probably going to be in the AFC Championship again this year. I don't see Brady. I don't see that team taking any steps back, even without Brady for the first 4 games. I think he's going to come out way more fired up than he has been. This is the first year he's going to play with the chip on his shoulder since he took over for Drew Bledsoe. Oh, yeah, and like a real fresh chip on it. Yeah, exactly, because his whole career he's kind of always had that edge, but I think now it's a fresh, this season he kind of got messy. Yeah, I totally agree. I think he's going to come out hot, and they're going to be they're going to have a really good season. I think New England comes in and takes care of San Francisco.
Agreed. Tom Brady's peaking by week 11, and he's playing angry.
Oh, yeah.
I give that game to the Pats.
Yeah, he's in Tom Brady Hulk mode at this point. Then we have Week 12. Here's where things get interesting because we're playing the Miami Dolphins. Now, this is a wild card because I have my doubts on Adam Gase just because I think he has a tall order to fill over in Miami that hasn't been filled since the departure of Dan Marino. I don't necessarily see this franchise turning around that fast under Gase because I don't necessarily think that Gase is the next amazing coach to come hit the NFL by storm like Bruce Arians is right now.
Right.
So I'm going to say the Niners actually take this one, although it is a road game, East Coast in Miami, so the Dolphins do have that going for them here. But I'm going to go ahead and give the road victory to the Niners, and I think that Chip Kelly and company go ahead and handle Adam Gase, and Chip Kelly shows him who's the veteran coach here with the expertise to pull it out to win.
Yeah, I take I don't believe in Miami at all. I take San Francisco here. I think on my schedule, I think they end their 2-game skid here, and they pick themselves back up with a W here in Miami for sure. So I got them at four wins now.
So here's the thing with this game for me. Dolphins aren't going to be very good. The 49ers are going to be kind of middle of the road. And this is one of those weird games to me where I can totally see the 49ers going into Miami and having the kind of game where they're just playing like crap and they're just like playing to the level of their opponent. Like this to me is like one of those games where
I can see that.
Right? You can see. Can't you see a picture of a scenario where the 49ers go in and they're just kind of playing to the level of Miami. You know what I mean?
If this was like Jim Harbaugh era, I might be able to to see that, or Jim Tomsula for that matter.
Yeah, I would say for sure Jim Tomsula here.
But I can't see it with Chip yet. I mean, and part of that is because none of us have seen Chip with the 49ers yet, so we don't know what to get. All we've seen is preseason, and that is, but a mere shadow of what to expect in a regular season. So I don't know. I don't know if I see them doing that. It depends if they're sitting at 7-3 at this point. I mean, what is it? They lose 2 back-to-back. They're 6-3 at this point. Then I see them. Yeah, I see 7-3 here. I don't see 6-4. 7-3 in the hunt.
And yeah, and Rudy, I totally get your argument. I think they do play too. I think they play down. I think they play to Miami's level because they're on an East Coast at 10 a.m. I think they play down. But I think that I think they're going to be able to pull through at the end because I think that they're going to at least for sure have a better defense. I'm not sure if statistically they'll have a better offense because if Gase can pull it through, I think the Dolphins will have – it all depends on Gase and Tannehill. I'm still not high on them, and I don't think they're going to do well. But I think the Niners have a better defense. I think at the end they're going to keep it close, and then the Niners defense is going to pull through at the end.
Yeah, people gave credit to Gase because they said, hey, you were the coordinator in Denver. I was like, yeah, but look who is your quarterback, a guy who could run the offense without you. And so
who did run the offense?
Yeah, and then you go to Chicago, and yes, statistically, Cutler put up his best numbers ever, but that's not saying much considering what his numbers were and what his numbers became last year. The difference in his improvement was marginal at best. And this is a quarterback who was projected to have a high ceiling, but is probably never going to ever see that ceiling. So I don't expect him to now. He's going to a quarterback who's doesn't even have the same experience as Jay Cutler or the quarterbacks he's seen before that. And so I just don't expect I don't expect Tannehill to make this amazing leap forward without going through some growing pains in Miami first.
For sure.
That's just what I see.
Okay, because we're on the road for the next 2 weeks, and I think we split our road series. And
you think they split it, and you think they lose to Miami, and they beat the next one?
No, I know. I think if they were going to win any game, it'd be the Dolphins, and they'd lose to Vic Fangio's defense.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. That's part of my my reasoning too. Not part of it because I think they're going to beat Miami whether they win East Coast or not. But I think back-to-back East Coast morning games, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think I think they beat Miami and then lose in Chicago, which I'm already kind of getting ahead of myself. But go ahead.
Spoiler.
So going on to the next week, this is a tough one to call because it puts me in a very optimistic position should I choose the Bears to win, which is now putting me into – I'm already in a very optimistic – I have an optimistic season going on here, which is kind of crazy.
You have a 5-game win streak, Ray.
It is very crazy. I'm going to say that. But you know what? The Niners were 6-10 when Harbaugh took over, and they weren't projected to win many games in that scenario either. But they didn't have as much talent. They don't have as much talent on the team now that they had more proven talent on the Harbaugh team than they do this team. The big difference in this case is that there's unproven talent with a lot of potential, but we haven't seen what that potential has become yet. Versus when Harbaugh took over, Patrick Willis was established. We had Bowman that came in. We had Justin Smith already. Gore was already established. So you had a lot of solid pieces in there. I'm taking a similar road to that, despite not knowing what our younger guys are going to become. I'm banking that they're going to be good because good coaching can get the best out of players better than bad coaching. Bad coaching will always be bad coaching, but good players can take a shitty player and make him better. And then maybe he goes to another team and does shitty again. But under that tutelage, he'll always do better because that's just what good coaching does. Right. So in this case, this is a tough one because we beat the Bears in overtime last year. But the one X factor is Vic Fangio, like you mentioned, brother. And I think that this second-year stint, and I thought Chicago was going to be monstrous defensively last year, but they really weren't. And Gabbert ended up beating them with a big, deep pass to end that game. 70 yards to Torrey Smith. on a defense that I thought was going to be a lot better. I think that they are much improved this year. I expect them to be a lot better this year, and I think they're going to give us a lot more trouble. How much trouble? Well, we're going to be in Chicago this time. So be slightly different scenario. So I'm going to say that the Niners drop this one, and that's only because of Vic Fangio. I think he has an improved defense over there in Chicago, and I think that becomes too much for Gabbert and company, particularly in the passing game, and he forces him to make errors. So I'm going to say the Niners fall to 7-4.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that the Bears win this one, and I think that because you back-to-back weeks in East Coast. I mean, Chicago isn't East Coast, but 10 a.m. game. I agree. I think their defense is going to be improved. Of course, and I'm drawing a total blank. There it is. Their first-round pick, Leonard Floyd, the linebacker out of Georgia. I'm sorry. A linebacker out of Georgia for Chicago. All reports and what report on a first-round pick doesn't come out that's really good, besides probably Jared Goff this season. But most reports have been coming. Most reports coming out have been saying that he looks really good. He looks beastly. I think they said that he was dealing with like a little nagging injury going on, but I think he'll be fine by the end of the season or late end of the season. I think the defense can be better. I think he's going to be a beast on the edge, and I think the Niners drop this one back-to-back weeks.
Despite the fact that we played Chicago late last year too, in Chicago, and won in overtime, and that was after coming off of back-to-back losses in Seattle and then at home against the Cardinals. Which, by the way, that was a narrow victory, 19-13, Cardinals over San Francisco.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, and I remember the Bears-Niners game.
That's why I think the scenario flips around at this home with the X factor being Chip Kelly, and that 19-13 could very well be the Niners 19, the Cardinals 13 at home.
Right, I totally agree.
Because they got what happened when they went to Arizona? They got blown out, 47-7.
Yeah, bad. Cap through the back-to-back pick sixes to start the game off.
Exactly. So that's why I don't trust them at home against Arizona. Not yet.
All right.
Brother, what do you see in Chicago?
No, we lose to Vic Fangio's Bears defense.
All right, moving on here. The next week we are playing the Jets.
Boom.
At home. Now the Jets, you got Fitzy. You can rattle Fitzy if you put the pressure on him. He's only had one good year his entire career, so it's very easy to play those odds in your favor. However, where the Jets excel is defensively. They have Pro Bowlers on that defensive front, like I've mentioned before. They retain guys. They've signed guys. Big-time players, double-digit sacks type of guys. I think that's going to be too much because if they take out the run and force us to beat us in the air, I don't think that Gabbert can handle that. That's assuming Gabbert is still the starting quarterback at this point.
That's a big assumption because I feel very strongly whoever starts as our starting quarterback is not going to end the season as our starting quarterback.
Which is a good argument to make. I think you guys get the win here over New York. I don't think I think the Jets are going to be in the same boat they were last year. At the end of the year, they're going to be teetering on that. Won't they make the playoffs? As Ken Fitzpatrick pull through again, just kind of a weird thing. And I think they're going to make some. I think Fitzpatrick's going to make some really grave mistakes against that pass rush, and he's going to throw some picks. And I think the Niners pull through in that one. Yeah, that's their fifth win for me.
Ooh.
Yeah, they're coming up.
Hey, so they've already tied last year.
Yeah, you guys are going to be better.
So I've already surpassed last year.
Way quicker than I did.
So we have four. This is a 4 road game stretch in 5 games. Wow. I'm saying they win in Miami, they lose in Chicago, they lose at home to the Jets. But I'm going to say, I'm sorry, brother, what did you think about the Jets?
That's a tough one, too. That's kind of a wonky team that, like similar to what Louis said,
It is, but they're the type of team where their defense keeps them in games.
Yes, it does. It does. That's a tight one. We're home. We're just coming off the loss against Chicago. Then we got to travel to Atlanta.
Could be a redemption game. I could have this wrong, where they lose in Chicago but then redeem themselves against New York.
I really can see them beating New York in San Francisco. I could see that.
And if that was flipped, if it was on the road in New York, I'd say definite loss. And then if Chicago was coming to San Francisco, then I would say that's a definite win.
True. I'd flip both of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna give the edge to the San Francisco 49ers on that one. That one's an either or game. I feel like.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's a toss-up.
Yeah.
It could be a toss-up.
It's a
yeah.
toss-up.
Our defense
think
could
the
be
edge
just
to the
as stout
49ers.
as them and force them into the same situation too.
Yeah, it's true.
It's
Yeah,
true.
I go with the Niners.
So then we go back on the road, travel to Atlanta. Now, we did beat Atlanta last year, but that was at home. However, I do not trust Dan Quinn and the Atlanta Falcons. I think they don't quite figure it out this year either, just because I don't think Dan Quinn is the man to get the job done. I think he's a great coordinator. I don't necessarily think he's fit to head coach a team like that, even though he's got it pretty good in Atlanta. Atlanta has a lot of tools and weapons over there, and Matt's a good quarterback. Matt Ryan's a good quarterback. He's definitely a top 20, if not top 15 quarterback. But I think we take them in Atlanta, and we rise to 8-5 at this point.
Wow. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give the Niners their 6th win of the season in my alternate dimension. And I'm going to say that, I don't think there's much to really talk about. I think I'm not too high on Atlanta this year as a team. I don't think they're going to be able to pull through even in Atlanta. The league found out about their fake crowd noise, and I think that's gonna their home field advantage isn't very loud. So I'm gonna take San Francisco on that one for sure. I think they go up to 6 wins, and I'm gonna go 6 wins. Not much else to say on that one.
That's team traveling east. I don't trust the Falcons. I'm still not sure how much I trust the 49ers this far into the season. Especially if my record's correct, I have them at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have them at 6 wins and 6 and 6. Actually, is what I have them at right down the middle.
They're 8-6 in my book right now.
Yeah,
sorry, I said 8-5. I correct myself. 8-6.
Yeah, they're 6 and 6 in my spot. I mean, at this point, any chances of?
That means you're in the hunt. Technically, those are in the hunt teams.
I was going to say any.
Well, no, you can't be 6-6 right now. You got to be 6 and 8 because if you have 6 wins, you have 8 losses at this point, right? Because you'd be 6 and 8, and then if you win the next two, you'd be 8.
I have them at 6 and 6. 1, 2.
But we're at week
17.
7.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I have them at 7 wins. Yeah, 7 wins.
There we go. Yeah, 7 and 8.
6. So I have 7 and 6 is where I have
7
them
and 6. Sorry, 7 and 6.
Yeah, so I have them at 7.
I have them at 6 and 8.
So
next week,
I'm gonna say. Yeah, I mean the Falcons aren't very good. I give that edge to the Falcons. I just don't trust them going. I don't trust them going east right now at all.
then they come back to the West Coast in Week 16
And we smoke those Rams.
against the Rams. And I think because of the youth and the inexperience, I think that, and the X factor, which of course for me this entire season will be Chip Kelly, I think that along with Jim O'Neill, the defensive coordinator, will be enough to sweep the Rams this year for the first time in a couple years. Right? It's been a few years since we've done.
Yeah, it's been a solid amount of time. I think before Jim Harbaugh, Jeff Fisher era, I think that was the last time it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely disagree. I'm taking Los Angeles in that one. I'm taking Los Angeles in that one. I think we. Wow, does that mean I think I have as we sweep you guys? Yeah, because I have us going. I think I have us going 4-2 in division.
So wait, you have Rams sweeping the Niners, and Raymond, you have Niners sweeping the Rams.
Correct.
Yeah, we have a nice little flip here. What if he's wrong?
Yeah.
Well, you know what, too? Well, we're gonna. I think after this, Raymond and I are gonna find out that we have like exact polar opposite seasons for the Niners in the tour. Because right now I'm at that'd be 6 and 9 for them, and then
I have them at 9 and 6.
Yeah, we're gonna end with probably like polar opposite seasons for the Niners. That'll be a really funny, funny end of the season thing to see.
That's true because, like I said, one of you is wrong. We're gonna find out who.
One of you's wrong.
So for the final week.
Oh, hold on.
I'm sorry. Sorry, brother. Who?
You took the Niners. You shouted that out pretty quick.
I did, but when we did your schedule, I said the Rams take that one.
Oh wow!
But I'm since it's a different schedule, I have a different pick, and I'm going with it.
I have a different pick for the same game.
That's right. Hey, either way, I'm right.
Either way, you're right, man. Either way, you're a win-win. Oh man!
All right, Ray.
Yeah, final game.
All right, so week 16, we are at home. Hosting the Seahawks for the final game of the season. Where Seahawks are in the playoff hunt, they could be either atop the AFC the NFC West with a clinch, or they could be vying for that playoff spot or the division spot against the Cardinals, which means we could be, much like the Rams, we could be in a spoiler position. However, considering our two brutal losses against them and the psychological edge that Seattle has over us the last 3 years, regardless of the new coach, I think that still doesn't make. I don't think that Chip Kelly's X factor doesn't quite make a difference here. I think he puts up a bigger fight. I mean, last year we lost 20-3, and then the next game it was 29-13. It wasn't even a contest. So, but I do think it's at least a contest in this case. Just not so much a contest that would be interesting in the fourth quarter. So I think that Seattle beats us and we fall to 9-7, and that Chip Kelly falls short of his 10-6
run.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna. I guess we won't be polar opposites. I'm gonna say 6-10. I think they lose this game as well. They're gonna lose. I think they're gonna go 2-2 in their last 4 games for me, for the Niners. I think they lose their last 2 though, with 9 against the Rams, and then even though they're at home, I think like you said, there could be that X factor of the Seahawks playing for the playoffs. But for some reason, the NFC is such a competitive conference. I see the Seahawks, like, even though they probably are going to be 9-6, 10-5 at that point, I think they're still going to be vying hard for a playoff spot and for at least a home field advantage for the first game or two. So I think they're going to be playing their guys for most of the game. I think they're going to come out hot and they're going to put away the Niners.
And Russell Wilson, I hate to admit it, but he's even though he's not as a prolific passer as Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, but he makes terrific decisions under pressure. He does not buck like Colin Kaepernick does, or a lot of other average quarterbacks do.
Correct.
And he runs really well. He has great vision. He can make his reads. He knows how to read defenses, and he's tough. He's slippery. He reminds me of a young Brett Favre without the same potency in passing.
Yeah,
Brett Favre was so slippery back in the day, and he could scramble too.
Yeah, he was.
I agree with everything you guys are saying. I do believe that this game will be more important for Seattle, who will be vying for playoff seeding positioning. So I believe that Seattle will come out with the win, and that gets my schedule here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
8-8.
8-8. I'm sorry, 8-8.
Right,
yep.
yeah.
Which is 8-8. Yep.
So you have them improving 3 games over their record last year. I have them.
Yeah, and I've been saying that for a while now. 8-8. I think they go 500 this year, and we take third place in the division.
So you got 8-8, Raymond.
I think when we originally did this, and I wasn't really, because it was the off season, I wasn't paying attention as much. I think I had them at 11-5.
You did. I remember.
I think
that.
I had them at the inverse,
and I think I had
awesome.
them at 4-12 or something.
You guys both flipped really quick. I think I don't know.
I still have them over 500.
Yeah, I have them under. I have them at 6-10, finishing at 6-10. And I optimistically have them finishing 4th place in the NFC West. I think the Rams finished 7-9, and we eke out another back-to-back 3rd place finish, and Jeff Fisher is out of the door.
Hang the banner.
Hang the banner, baby. 3rd place. Wear my hat already.
You've already ordered the hat.
I've already ordered the hat, man. Yeah.
If we take 4th place in the division, I might have to get that hat made. 49ers 4th place division, and I'll wear it.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd be so down with that. Yeah, and hey, and real quick too, so I know that we're wrapping this up with the preseason predictions. Preseason predictions. Even though we're technically week 1 of the regular season has almost started, but we'll still call them preseason predictions. I just want to throw out the wager that Rudy Solis III, Rudy Jr., who to me is Rudy Sr., your guys' dad, and myself put away a $20 wager on the Rams 2016 season. I just want to make sure that's on the air now. I have it in my notes, but Rudy Jr., who again to me is Rudy Sr., this will be confusing to some people, has them going 4-12 and them going 0-6 in division. He doesn't think we'll win a game in division, which I loved. And then,
Wait, my dad said that?
Yeah, remember?
I thought my dad was far more optimistic than that.
Oh my God, he was the most pessimistic.
I think he had a 6-10 record or something.
No, I haven't changed these. Look at this since May of 2016 when they were here, when we talked about it. I haven't touched these since then. That's what they've said. 4-12. He had us at 0. Remember, because you and I were so shocked. We had been drinking, so obviously there's some faded memories. But yeah, I remember we were so shocked. I was like, you don't think they're going to win a game against division? And he said no. So we got him at 4. Rudy, you had them at 6-10 and going 1-5 in division.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have them getting swept by the Cardinals in this version and swept by the Seahawks. So
there you go. Yeah. So you're probably 1-5 for division is realistic.
Yeah, and I got him swept by Seattle, split with Cardinals, and sweep the Rams. So I think that's a winning division record, isn't it?
Yes.
Wait, you have the
2, 3, and then no, that's a 500, 3-3.
If you, I see what you're saying. You're speaking from the Rams. I see what you're saying. Yes, yeah. I have them at with my picks. I said when I made the bet 3-3 in division, but I have them at now that we're doing these picks now, I have them at 4-2 in division again. But I still have them at only 8 wins. I had them originally at 8-8. But again, with Jeff Fisher, it's either gonna be 7-9 or 8-8. It's gonna be right in there. So. But that's our bet. So I just want to make sure that's known.
That is on the record. That is on the record. You guys are all hearing it here for the first time, GoldCast fans. So don't forget it because we're going to bring it back up.
And now
definitely bring it back
up. I think the Romo injury swayed my Cowboys pick.
The Romo injury did change things.
That changed. That gave us one more extra win that I didn't think we were going to get. And then I decided on this last time that we were going to sweep the Rams, and before I said we split the Rams. So there's where the two extra wins came from. Pretty much, I think all the other ones is pretty much exactly how I thought it was going to be. So that'll be a fun bet between us. It's going to be an interesting season. I think the 49ers are going to be better than they played last year for sure. I think the defense is going to be sneaky good. I think we're going to win some games that we shouldn't, and we're going to lose some games we should have won. I think it's going to be
that's totally part of the growing pains recipe. You win games, you're like, oh cool, we got some surprise wins, which makes you optimistic for the future. But then it's like we still have some humps to get over because then you lose games, you lose some heartbreakers.
Exactly, and I think the Rams, We gave you a hard time about it, but all kidding aside, I think the Jared Goff thing was a really, really bad decision, and I think that it's something that mainly because you guys, it's just the loss of all those picks. It's not even like I don't even mind them picking up Jared Goff.
Six picks.
What you gave up to get this guy.
That's a tough pill to swallow. Now, if Goff becomes the next Favre or even a shell of a Manning, then it'll be looked at as like. One of the gutsiest payoffs in NFL history. But if it fails, it'll be like looked at as one of the biggest blunders.
Oh, for sure. And honestly, I think it's gonna. In my opinion, it's gonna be somewhere in the middle there. I think Jared Goff's gonna be. I think it all depends on the season. I think if we sit him the entire year, I think he's gonna have. I think next season he's gonna come out, be the starter. I think he's gonna take command of the offense. I think he's gonna be good. I think we'll have a little bit above average type of quarterback. I almost see maybe a poor man's Andy Dalton, maybe a little bit better of an Alex Smith statistically, stats wise. But I think we'd have a little bit above average quarterback. But if we throw him in there this season in the NFC West, especially with the schedule we have, he's gonna be destroyed mentally, physically.
Right. He'll go down the path of young Alex Smith, of still young Blaine Gabbert. That's the path he has if he gets thrown into the fire. So in my opinion, him sitting right now, even at the number 3 spot, is the best thing for him.
Oh yeah,
that increases that makes you guys look good. It also increases the future potential of him, because we know what happens when quarterbacks sit. They tend to do better. Aaron Rodgers is proof of that. Steve Young is proof of that.
Yeah.
Brady is proof of that.
College and start.
It is.
It's really
Very
hard to
few
come out of
quarterbacks
college
can
and
do
start.
it, man. And the ones that can do it are again generational talents. They're these guys. There's the Cam Newton, they're the Andrew Lucks, they're Peyton Manning, they're those type of guys. They're not these, Jared Goff.
And those guys all stayed in college the whole time. They didn't come prematurely like Goff did.
Exactly, and they also were incredibly good quarterbacks. That when they came out of college, everyone knew they were going to be a top pick, as opposed to, Jared Goff. I told Rudy this the other day. We could have waited. We could have traded up to the number 7 spot, and I'm pretty positive we could have taken him at number 6 or 7. I guarantee we could have. There's no reason we had to trade another number 1. It was part of it was PR. Look, this is our first year in LA. We want to make a huge splash. Let's trade up to the number 1 spot and get Jared Goff, man. Let's get a quarterback. Let's do our thing. It's Cali boy. Let's do all that. It was. I think that had something to do with it. I don't think it had everything to do with it, but I think it had something to do with it. We could have gotten him at 6 or 7. I don't think anyone in that top 5 or 6 was going to take a quarterback, until Philly traded in. They wanted Wentz.
Yeah,
I agree. I do. I think it was a big marketing stunt.
Yeah.
But then what the hard part is you get Jared Goff, and now you have no picks next year. How do the Los Angeles Rams improve? Like, let's say, for instance, let's say you're right, and you guys take 3rd place this year. You're definitely not taking 3rd place next year. You're going to fall to the bottom of the barrel. So what was the point? You know what I mean?
Exactly. What was the point? The point was our first year in LA. That's it. It's our first year in LA. They wanted to make sure that we got people intrigued and interested. And if we don't place last, if we're middle of the pack, we're 8-8. People aren't going to be hyped, but they're not going to be bummed and depressed when we go 5-11 or 6-10 or whatever. And I think next year, honestly, is going to be one of our worst years. We'll talk about that in a long time because I want to put it off, but I think next year's going to be one of our much lower years, man. We're probably going to end up firing Jeff Fisher, in my opinion, and I think we're going to have a new head coach. It's going to be our 2nd year. We're not going to have any 1st-round picks. I don't think we even have any 2nd-round picks next year. I think our 1st pick is maybe the 3rd. And yeah, I mean, we're not going to be looking too hot. That's for sure. So I think that next year is definitely going to be our downturn. But again, though, what the point of it is that if our first year in LA, they want to make a splash, but also if Goff sits and then next year Goff can come out under new head coach, and he won't win a lot of games, but if he can show that, hey, he can throw for 3,300 yards and 25 or 30 touchdowns and be good in the pocket, not like he looked his preseason, I think that will be the win. Even if we go 5-11 or 6-10, we can say, okay, at least we know we have a kid that has his head on his shoulders. And I think that, and then year 3 of Jared Goff, I think will take off. Now we're looking way too far into the future of something that has not happened yet. So
very true, very true. It'll be interesting. It's going to be an interesting
very
season
interesting to watch. Yes,
it is. I think for us non-Seahawks and Cardinals fans, I think watching the Rams and Niners duke it out for 3rd and 4th is kind of going to be the battle for us this year. That's and that's all right. We football, you have up years, you have down years, and this is one of those years where we're fighting for 3rd place right now, and I'm okay. Yeah. Like I after the Tom Sula year, like I'll take that over anything.
Correct.
Over nothing, I should say.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Jim. Well,
Great.
Lewie, congratulations. Welcome to the very first GoldCast recording that you've been on. I look forward to having you back.
Thank you guys so much, man. I'm happy to be out here, and shout out to the GoldCast family, man.
Hell yeah. So, Raymond, where can they find us?
You can follow us on Twitter at 49ers GoldCast. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube, Stitcher, and iTunes under the same moniker, 49ers GoldCast. You can also find me on Twitter at Ray Solis. Brother, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me on one more place. The other place you want to definitely look for us as Facebook.com.
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
that's where all of the news articles are too. It's a little bit of that, and Twitter is where all of our news feeds are.
Boom. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Rudy Solis 3rd. Rudy Solis number 3RD. Rudy Solis 3rd. Lewie, where can they find you?
At actually Lewie B, Lewie, and that's on all my major social media handles.
Bam, there it is. So concludes another edition of the 49er GoldCast. We are the voice of the faithful. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the First, baby.
And our Los Angeles co-host,
Lewie Bartone.
Boom. We'll see you next time. Same GoldCast time, same GoldCast channel. And we out.